So I've been making a lot of commercials for my friend's fragrance brand, and I thought I'd share some cool tips for you to make beautiful looking fragrance commercials that look something like this. This video is sponsored by me. Well, my store. Click the link in the description below to find a selection of LUTs, sounds, and Lightroom presets to amplify your creative journey and speed up your workflow whilst adding some sweet color tones in your photos and videos. Everything you see is what I use in my professional work and in my YouTube content. Welcome to another video. My name is Camilo, and you may have seen these TikTok videos where somebody puts a mirror underneath a fragrance and they have their monitor behind it and everybody goes crazy about it. Although that's actually pretty cool, that's only half the battle when it comes to making good fragrance commercials that help the brand stand out against the competition. Now, I've done some research from top brands to the middleweight contenders to figure out what it is that they do in their content that makes it stand out. And I think I've clocked some stuff, so today I'm going to share you what I've pretty much learned. So I'm going to cover gear, the set design, camera angles and your shot selection, as well as the editing process. Also, before we start, if you like this video, make sure to leave it a like so that the YouTube gods bless this video to other creatives like yourselves that are keen to learn some more. Camera gear. Yes, gear doesn't matter, but in cases where you're trying to make a good commercial video for a brand, it kind of matters. Luckily, you don't need the latest and greatest camera gear. My suggestions are as follows. Lighting. For lighting, we want nice, soft light that's also very bright. This is for two reasons. Soft light makes things look appealing, stops any harsh spots from getting into your product, which reduces the whole amateur look. As well as that, we need it to be bright because in order to get all of the detail in our shots, we have to stop down on our aperture to something like f4 or f8 to get things looking crispy, and to compensate for that we need a lot more light. I used the Godox VO150 with a fat parabolic softbox, but I did get results like these with those Amazon lighting kits that you can get for really cheap, so you can definitely do a lot with very little. So another thing that you can consider is getting one of these portable photography studio sets. Great because they give you a very easy professional look because of the way the lighting is set up, and they're great if you don't have access to a big space where you can set up lights and a background. If you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description to one of these so you can check them out for yourself. In terms of where you put the light, place it at an angle to your product. This is so that you capture the light wrapping around it, which inherently adds more depth to your shots. Bonus points if you add a backlight. So because a lot of the fragrance bottles are usually very clear, what an edge light does is it highlights a lot of the back of the product, also helping it separate from the background. Another thing is that as filmmakers, we focus a lot on camera movement and product movement, but what about lighting movement? You've probably seen this before in other videos, but by moving the light around your object, especially if it's in complete darkness, you get some really cool looking effects. I always like to capture some videos like these because they help for cutaways and to change up the pacing of the video. I also recommend you get some sort of vertical light or a tube, because when you direct that light at your fragrance, it adds some height to it because you get a vertical streak going up the product. And more bonus points if you use an RGB light, because depending on the scent, color of the fragrance and branding, using colors that represent the branding or go along with it could take you a long way. Camera and lens. Really and truly, you can use any camera that you want. If you have a camera that shoots something like 60 FPS, that will help a lot when it comes to slowing down the movement of your shots. You don't need 4K video, especially because a lot of these videos live on Instagram, so you're fine with just 1080p. I also recommend you get a lens that has a shallow depth of field that will be used for some shots, but you definitely don't want to get an ultra wide lens. Anything above 35mm is what you're looking for, because you want to really isolate the product in the video. Also, with tighter shots, it allows you to blur out the background really easily, even after you have stopped down to something like f4 or f8. So that's why I recommend you use something with a focal length above 35mm. I also recommend these bad boys. These are macro tubes. These convert any lens into a macro lens, which is actually insane because macro lenses are thousands of monies. These will save your bum and will also allow you to get really nice tight shots in focus that you probably can't get with a lot of lenses, as a lot of lenses have very long focusing distances. Set design. So as mentioned at the beginning, I've seen a lot of people use the mirror technique. If you do use this, I suggest you find footage that really resembles the branding of the fragrance. This allows the viewers to subconsciously relate the product to the scent without even having bought the product. One thing that you should remember is to research the tones of your fragrance. Every time I work with a fragrance client, I always ask them first what the tones of the fragrance are so that you can design your video around those flavors. Excluding the screen trick, having a reflective surface underneath your fragrance bottles is a really nice way to add some depth to your image. And it's a gold standard when it comes to beauty product videos and photos. Another tip is to make sure to consider what's in the background and in the foreground. Try different things that produce bokeh, for example using fairy lights like I did in this commercial. What's great about using macro shots, even if you stop down to something like f4 or f8, you can get these things out of focus. So if you just have some textures behind it really adds to the background. Shot selection. So the first thing in terms of shot selection is angles. Lower angles make the product look bigger, giving it that whole hero look. Higher angles are great for getting more detail, but they do make the product look smaller. They actually serve a good purpose when you're using that mirror effect. Experiment with changing the orientation of the bottles, putting them on the side and shooting the liquid or shooting the bottle cap. People get really bored seeing the same kind of flat full shot of the bottle, so instead mix that in with some close-ups, side angles. In terms of moving shots, you can do a lot of them in post, especially push-ins and pull-outs. What I recommend is that you get some sort of lazy Susan, and then in post I just zoom in slightly as the product is spinning and you get some really nice dynamic looking shots. One other thing that you can incorporate that I have tried before is taking the camera off the tripod and having it handheld at a high frame rate, like 120 FPS if your camera can do it, or even 60 FPS, and then you can use them as cutaways as well to add some variety to your footage. So the main difference between fragrance commercials and other commercials is that while some commercials rely on the product's look, clever use of camera techniques and storytelling, fragrance commercials don't really do that. They actually don't really have any rules. They're usually quite random, but they have their own style to them and are almost like music videos. So my suggestions for your edits are as follows. Use different transitions. It's very important that you have a variety of transitions. You can experiment with fades and cuts. The key is to keep the viewer interested as to what's going to happen next. You don't want to bore them with having repetitive transitions. If you look at some music videos, they don't usually use the same transitions over and over again. Maybe they have like a set of 4 transitions and then they just use them sparingly throughout the video. But that being said, keep an eye on your direction. I have mentioned this before in a video where I talk about how you should use transitions in your videos, but you want to make sure that the movement of the objects and of the camera flows in a consistent manner. Like when you're reading a book, you go from left to right. Quick tip, the best way to change direction, say for example you're going from left to right to left, is to include a push in or a pull out in between. Another thing to consider in this no rule territory that is fragrance commercials is to change up the pacing frequently. Don't always cut to the same drums. You really want to switch up the pacing within the music. Check out this example here where I'm cutting to the beat and then there is some sound in the music that I randomly cut to as a transition point. So one of the other things that you can include as part of the editing process is to include stock footage that can be used as overlays or as cutaways to different scenarios that go with the scent of the fragrance. In this example, there are cutaways to fruit to show that this fragrance has citrus and fruity tones. Overlays also help enhance the look of the shot. In this example here, I use a ton of overlays to help with transitions where I'll just increase the opacity of the overlay at the transition point and then decrease it back down, or I'll use it to add some kind of accent to the shot to make it more dreamy. If you're looking for overlays, I recommend going to mixkit.co. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I know they do free overlays and free stock footage too, but there are some clauses for some of them. With that being said, those are my tips when it comes to making beautiful looking fragrance commercials. If you do make something cool, don't hesitate to tag me or send me a DM. And if this video brought you some value, make sure to leave it a like so others like you can also see it. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot and it's free. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.